Imagine sitting in a courtroom, surrounded by the highest powers of law, your every word scrutinized, your reputation at stake. But what happens when the tables turn, and a seemingly simple hearing spirals into something much darker? This is the true story of a man who thought he could hide behind lies, only to be exposed by the relentless pursuit of truth. In this explosive confrontation, Jasmine Crockett didn't just ask questions. She dug deep, revealing secrets that were meant to stay hidden. Ready to find out how it all unfolded? Keep watching, because this is a battle of integrity, power, and the truth that refuses to stay buried. The cold, fluorescent lights flickered above, casting a sterile glow over the room. Room 2141 in the Rayburn House office building was packed. The atmosphere was thick with tension as reporters scribbled notes and congressional staffers shuffled papers. The clock on the wall ticked toward 9 a.m., but the sense of routine that usually accompanied such hearings was missing. This wasn't just another day in Washington, D.C. Something was about to happen, something that would not only shake the political landscape, but also reveal the very essence of power and transparency. At the witness table sat Kash Patel, a man who had grown accustomed to the spotlight. His tailored suit, impeccable posture, and the air of confidence he exuded had become almost second nature. But this morning, the usual calm in his demeanor seemed off. He glanced around the room, eyeing the cameras that lined the walls and the committee members who had taken their seats. There was nothing about this hearing that hinted at the storm to come. Representative Jasmine Crockett, on the other hand, was the picture of focus. She wasn't one to make a scene. Instead, she let her sharp mind and relentless pursuit of truth speak for itself. Quietly preparing, her legal pad in hand, she reviewed the notes her team had worked tirelessly on in preparation for this moment. Every line of questioning was carefully crafted. Every document meticulously checked. Her eyes, cold and calculating, flicked up to the committee members as they settled in, then returned to her pad. This was more than just a political game. This was about exposing corruption, about pulling the veil back on a system that thrived in the shadows. As the chairman, Representative DuPont, began the proceedings, the room seemed to breathe in unison. Nothing had seemed unusual at first. This was supposed to be a standard session, a chance for Patel to clear up discrepancies from a previous testimony regarding internal communications. There was nothing on the agenda that suggested fireworks. It was just another day in the endless parade of congressional hearings. But Jasmine Crockett wasn't about to let this be just another day. She had been here before, watched the games that politicians played, heard the words that danced around truth. No, today was different. She had the ammunition. She had the proof. And she wasn't afraid to use it. As Patel answered questions, his responses were carefully crafted, each sentence calculated to maintain his innocence. But Jasmine watched closely, eyes never leaving him for long. She was waiting for him to slip, waiting for the moment when his facade would crack. And then it happened. The first shot fired, subtle but devastating. Jasmine spoke in a calm, controlled voice. Mr. Patel, you testified that you had no written communication with Mr. Devlin regarding the March 14th briefing. Is that correct? Patel hesitated, glancing briefly at his legal team. Yes, that's correct, he replied, a small twitch in his jaw betraying his composure. Jasmine didn't flinch. She simply opened her folder, pulling out a memo, dated March 13th, with Patel's signature at the bottom. She placed it in front of her, letting the room absorb the moment. The tension in the air thickened. There was no turning back now. Jasmine's calculated move had set the stage, and Patel had no idea how much the game had just changed. As the document sat in front of Jasmine, the room seemed to hold its breath. There was a tense pause before anyone spoke. Patel's usual air of calm had evaporated. His hands, which had been resting casually on the desk, were now fidgeting, tapping lightly, betraying the nerves that were just starting to show. His attorney shifted uncomfortably in his seat, leaning forward slightly as if to gauge his client's next move. Jasmine's voice broke the silence, but she didn't raise it. She didn't need to. Mr. Patel, she said, her eyes never leaving his. You testified under oath that you had no written communication with Mr. Devlin regarding the March 14th briefing. This memo, dated a day before, clearly shows otherwise. How do you explain that? The room seemed to pulse with the weight of her words. A soft murmur rippled through the audience as reporters quickly scribbled notes. Jasmine's composed demeanor was as striking as ever, but the sharpness of her tone left no room for misinterpretation. She wasn't just asking questions. She was building a case, one fact at a time. Patel leaned forward, his face flushed. He swallowed hard, clearly aware that his earlier calm had been shattered. "That memo, there must be a mistake," he stammered. His voice wasn't as confident now, and for the first time he seemed unsure. "I didn't write that." Jasmine didn't flinch. "It's your signature, Mr. Patel," she replied, her tone flat but cutting. "And it's from your personal email account, addressed to Mr. Devlin. Can you explain how a memo with your signature and your email address ends up being misattributed?" She gave him no time to respond before continuing. "In fact, it seems you've signed similar memos before. Would you like me to present those as well?" The room went silent. The impact of Jasmine's words hit Patel like a punch to the gut. He opened his mouth to speak, but his attorney placed a hand on his arm, signaling him to stop. The tension was palpable. Patel could feel the weight of the room's eyes on him, waiting for him to slip further into the trap that Jasmine had carefully set. "Mr. Patel, this isn't about a mistake," Jasmine said, her voice carrying the full weight of the truth. "You're caught in your own lies, and the facts speak for themselves." Patel's jaw tightened. He was visibly uncomfortable now, trying to maintain his composure but struggling. He opened his mouth to respond but quickly closed it, unsure of what to say next. The silence stretched, and for the first time he looked defeated. But Jasmine wasn't finished. She quietly reached into her folder again, pulling out a new document. This one was a screenshot. A text message from Patel to Mr. Devlin, sent the day after the memo had been written. She raised it slightly, letting the audience see it. "This," she said, "is a text message you sent to Mr. Devlin. It references the memo you've just denied. Do you still stand by your statement?" Patel shook his head, as if trying to clear his thoughts. He didn't have an answer. And as Jasmine placed the text in front of him, it was clear that the game had changed. He was no longer in control of the narrative. Chairman DuPont, who had been quiet throughout the exchange, cleared his throat. "Mr. Patel," he said, his voice firm, "you are under oath. You cannot continue to deny the evidence presented to you." There was a finality in his tone, a warning that Patel's excuses were wearing thin. Patel's face was now pale, his earlier confidence replaced with a sense of urgency. His gaze shifted toward his lawyer, who gave him no guidance. He was on his own now, with no way to twist his way out of the facts that were piling up against him. It was only a matter of time before Jasmine would reveal the final piece of the puzzle, and he knew it. His heart was racing, his thoughts scattered. He had never felt so exposed. The room waited. The cameras zoomed in, capturing every second of his discomfort. The stakes had never been higher, and everyone in the room knew it. The tension in the room had reached its peak, but what came next was something no one expected. Patel, now visibly on edge, couldn't maintain his composure anymore. He leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair as the weight of the situation finally seemed to sink in. His attempts to control the narrative had failed, and now, Jasmine was on the offensive, poised to reveal the final blow. Jasmine's eyes never left Patel's, but her voice remained calm, calculated, almost eerily calm. "Mr. Patel," she said, "we have one more piece of the puzzle. This is a transcript of a conversation that took place just a few weeks ago. You said the situation was under control. But here you are, fighting to keep things hidden. Why?" Patel's eyes flickered toward the transcript. His throat tightened. The transcript had been prepared carefully, each line underlined, each key piece of information highlighted. The entire room seemed to be holding its breath, waiting for him to respond, but he remained silent. His earlier confidence had evaporated, leaving only a shell of the man who had walked into the hearing room hours ago. Jasmine wasn't done. She turned to the rest of the room. "This conversation is only a small part of a much larger story," she continued. "It's about power. It's about how those in power believe they can escape scrutiny, hide behind closed doors, and keep the truth buried. But the truth, as we've seen today, is harder to suppress than they think." The room was silent, save for the soft hum of cameras. Patel looked like he had been caught in a web of his own making. He had underestimated Jasmine's determination, her ability to stay one step ahead. And now, the truth was out, slowly but surely. "Mr. Patel," Jasmine said again, her voice cold but measured. "It's not just about the email or the text messages. It's about accountability. It's about ensuring that those who operate behind the scenes are held responsible for their actions." For a moment, Patel said nothing. Then, with a defeated sigh, he spoke. "I was just following orders," he muttered, barely loud enough for anyone to hear. The room seemed to react with a collective gasp. His admission was like a dagger to his own credibility. Jasmine stood tall, her expression unwavering. "No one is above accountability," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the room. "Not you, not anyone. The American people deserve to know the truth." The committee room was quiet, but the impact of Jasmine's words hung in the air like smoke. The case wasn't over, but it was clear. Patel's days of controlling the narrative were over. The truth had finally won out.